Hi, I'm Dave Eckert, and this week my travels bring me to one of my favorite spots in the world, the one and only Tuscany. I'll start my Tuscan travels in the heart of Chianti at the Poggio al Cassone estate of Castellani.
Each generation must do something more.
Here, Piergiorgio Castellani produces not just great wine, but forgotten grapes.
We are starting now to replant those grapes in the vineyard so we don't lose the patrimony of the vineyard, and we'll maybe find a good companion for Sangiovese for the next Super Tuscan.
In his experimental vineyard, Castellani is saving indigenous grape varietals from extinction, and in the process, giving his wines a new edge. That's great. That's really good.
A typical Chianti.
No, it's better than a typical
Yeah.
Chianti. Typical Chianti sometimes is not so good. I'll use some of those local varietals to make my own Super Tuscan blend at Castellani's home.
Look, you got goosebumps.
And I'll have a fabulous meal prepared by a local chef and Castellani's wife, Chiara, all paired to Castellani's outstanding wines.
Most important is the flavor.
After, I'll head south to Montalcino for a visit with Castello Valley. One of the questions I get asked most frequently is, what's your favorite place to visit? I try to explain how that's an impossible question to answer because I'd be comparing apples and oranges. And while that's true, I still have to put Tuscany at or near the top of my list of favorites. Tuscany has it all: history, culture, beauty, great wine, and great cuisine to go with it. And there's always something new to discover, like my destination today, Castellani's Poggio al Cassone estate, just a little south and east of Pisa. Here, Castellani has established something unique, identifying, rescuing, and vinifying ancient indigenous, almost extinct grape varietals with the goal of saving the grapes and creating something special.
Here we do have a wonderful diversity in this estate. We want to make this diversity the central point of our research. If we will have diversity in the vineyard, we will have diversity in wine, and we will have unique wines that people can drink only if they come here or they're looking for special things.
The Castellanis acquired Poggio al Cassone in the early 90s. It's about 65 acres planted to grapes. Some of the vines are up to 90 years old. This is a special place, the first hills off the Mediterranean coast. The soils are a mixture of clay, sand, and small stones from what used to be a riverbed. They were harvesting Sangiovese on this day, not one of the rescued varietals, but the poster child for Tuscan wines, and a difficult child, according to Castellani.
Sangiovese is much thinner skin.
It's much thinner
It makes
skin.
it much harder to grow a really
Yes,
perfect Sangiovese.
much more delicate, much more difficult. It needs very special care. Very special care, very special attention.
They have 10 different clonal selections of Sangiovese at Poggio al Cassone, and as we've mentioned, a lot of other grapes. Sangiovese provides the backbone for Castellani's Chianti Superiore, which comes from the estate. I visited the estate during the '07 harvest, a year vineyard manager Andres Becconcini was very pleased with.
We have the budding earlier than the medium, and consequently we are harvesting with some days in anticipo, early than the medium. So during the September, and usually in September we have a very good weather, so no harvest during the rain, no. And we at the last we had also a very nice September with a very hot temperature during the day, so with a good ripeness of the sugars, and no rain during September, and colder temperature during the night, so with a perfect ripeness of the polyphenols and anthocyans. So we have with this season had the perfect balance.
It's an organic operation at Poggio al Cassone, and in fact, at all 4 of the Castellani estates. Piergiorgio believes the only way to produce great wine is to live in the vineyards and learn what each of them are able to provide naturally.
If you use irrigation, artificial irrigation, and if you feed the vines with artificial fertilizers, and if you protect the vines with weekly spray, the vines will become very weak. They will produce weak grapes, who will produce weak wines.
When the Castellanis purchased Poggio al Cassone, they had two choices: tear up the old vines and completely replant the vineyards, or study each vineyard lot, learn exactly what grape varietals they had growing where, and identify precisely what flavors and aromas those grapes would bring to the wine. Of course, the Castellanis chose the latter of the two, selecting the best vines from throughout the estate and replanting them in an experimental vineyard. In all, they identified 10 varietals in the vineyards of Poggio al Cassone, with names like Oliva, Santo Stefano, Abruzzo, and Grand Noir.
So, gentlemen, tell me what we're looking at here.
We are looking the 5 more interesting varieties of the experimental vineyard.
So,
This is the Grand Noir, Giacomino, Abruzzo, Santo Stefano, and Oliva.
Becconcini and Castellani say each grape brings something special to the wine equation. The Santo Stefano provides dark color and spicy aromas. The Abruzzo, power, tannins, and spicy flavors. The Olivo, more color and body, and so on.
are you excited about when
Yeah.
you see this now after 7 years?
Yeah, of microvinification, a continued proof of molecular research on the grape. We are starting now to replant those grapes in the vineyard, so we don't lose the patrimony of the vineyard, and we'll maybe find a good companion for Sangiovese for the next Super Tuscan.
They started making microvinifications of the grapes about 8 years ago, seeking to find the best grapes for the best flavors and aromas. The goal is to replant the grapes that show the most promise, saving the varietal, preserving the history, and ultimately making wine that can only be made here. With a couple of bottles of those varietals, Abruzzo and Santo Stefano, we tried a little experiment at Castellani's home.
This is my first blend. This is fun.
3 parts Santo Stefano to 1 part of the fuller-bodied and more tannic Abruzzo, and we've got our Super Tuscan. Or have we? No.
Let's try again.
Go, okay, dragon.
The Abruzzo was still overpowering the Santo Stefano, so we tried 90% Santo Stefano and just 10% Abruzzo. We got a hit.
Look, you got goosebumps.
An experimental wine from an experimental vineyard with grape varietals that could have just as easily been extinct. Not bad. Of course, the best way to appreciate any wine is with food. That's my next task, as Castellani invited me for a special meal in the kitchen of his vineyard home, prepared by local chef Fabio Imamet and Castellani's wife, Chiara.
Most important is the flavor. So when you are so close to your dish, you can this is a very good flavor. So there's a lot of tomato, there's a lot of rosmarino and salvia, and the real heart of our land.
In Tuscany, as much as any wine-producing region in the world I've visited, there is a true sense of wine and food pairing. That was certainly the case tonight. Iammet and Castellani really put on the Ritz, starting with crostoni with black cabbage and sausage. This earthy dish was matched with the equally earthy Castellani Chianti Superiore. Next came testaroli, a special type of pasta served with pesto and fresh basil, another nice fit for the Chianti. The pappardelle pasta with rabbit carried a little more weight, so we went with the fuller-bodied wine, La Cottura. There was pork tenderloin with sautéed onion jam served with a mixed salad with endive and edible flowers. The complexity of this dish cried for a complex wine. We chose the Fattoria di Travalda, a Super Tuscan blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. Quite a food and wine pairing, quite the evening, as the guest of Piergiorgio and Chiara Castellani.
Insieme, sì.
She
Spero.
She hoped to be able, when the children will be a little more independent, to have the possibility of working with me and cook and make all the matching with the wines. At the moment, just cooking for the children, for the family, and for his own joy.
There was certainly plenty of joy on this night. I mentioned that Castellani has 4 estates. This is Tenuta di Burkino, where grapes from the morning harvest were arriving at the crush pad. This is where Castellani makes and ages some of its wines, so it was a good opportunity for Piergiorgio to sample some of the wines out of the barrel with his winemaker. Tenuta di Burkino is also home to an Etruscan cellar that dates back to 600 BC. Castellani uses the cellar to store small lots of its estate wines. I'm sure they'll have plenty of the 07 vintage to store, which again appears to be a very good year. The grapes look to be in excellent shape, which should mean terrific wines. What a better setting to taste some of the Castellani offerings: a Trebbiano, Vermentino, and Viognier-based white wine, and the Castellani Chianti Superiore, both of which are produced at Tenuta di Burkino.
It's nice. It's very crisp, very refreshing. It's very pleasant.
Yes, it's perfect for fish food
Right.
or any light meal.
Next up, the Chianti Superiore, the best grapes from the best lots of Castellani's Chianti vineyards. A medium-bodied, earthy, well-balanced wine, and definitely a product of its terroir.
That's great. That's really good.
And typical Chianti.
No, it's better than a typical
Yes.
Chianti. Typical Chianti sometimes
Yeah.
is not so good. This,
No.
this is a very good Chianti because it's round, it's medium-bodied, it's not full-bodied. It has great acidity, but it doesn't rip the enamel off your teeth with acidity or tannin.
Castellani produces a wide range of wines from its estates, including the excellent Campomaggio wines from the heart of Chianti Classico and others. They've been making wine here for a long, long time. But under Piergiorgio and his research of ancient, forgotten varietals, there is new energy and excitement, and assuredly, better and better wines under the name of Castellani.